I just added this really neat effect to my modal component where the background app kind of shrinks down when the modal opens up, and I want to show you exactly how I did it. So let's dive into my side project here, and I've already got this modal wired up. I actually have another video showing how I built it. I'll link it down in the description, but we want to add that effect where the rest of the app kind of shrinks down. And you know, when I first was approaching this, I was thinking I might throw in a use effect here and kind of look at the state of the component and add and remove those styles to the overall app. But I realized since I'm already using Framer Motion right here and I want those new styles to be coordinated with the existing animation, the hooks that Framer Motion gives are actually going to be perfect for this use case. So right here on my overlay, we have this on animation start. And we also have an on animation complete. And if we say start and complete, we'll see that these guys fire each time the animation starts and then stops, both when it opens and it closes. So the basic idea here is going to be to find the root node of our application, which in this case is this div with the ID next, since this is a next app. And we're going to go ahead and say transform is scale. And if we scale this down by 0.93, and we also come and add a background of black to the HTML tag, that's going to give us kind of the general effect. And scaling is nice because it just kind of takes care of everything inside. So to start, let's just grab document.querySelector, and we'll use this next ID. And then we can say .style.transform is equal to scale 0.93. And then we'll also grab document.documentElement. This is the HTML element. And we'll say style.background is equal to black. So if we hit edit, we see the basic idea there. Now let's come and find our modal window, and I'm just going to hide this for now. And now we can kind of see the background shrinking down. Okay, and if we just grab these and paste them so that we can unset these when the animation is complete, and check this out, we'll actually see it's running when both the open and the close are complete. So if I bring back this modal, and then let's just bring it down a little bit, add some more margin to it, we can now see what's happening. And so we actually only want to run this code that sets the background black and scales the app when the open animation starts, and then we want to reset it when the close animation finishes. Well, you can see right here in Framer Motion, I'm already using variants on this overlay, and I have two named variants, open and closed, that we animate to and exit from. And when you use variants with Framer Motion, you actually get the variant name right here as an argument to these callbacks. And if I just log the variant right here, and we look at the console, now we'll see that we can differentiate whether we're opening or closing the modal. So in this case, if the variant is open, that means we are starting the open animation. And we want to go ahead and set the background to black and scale it. And then if the variant here is closed, that means we've completed the closed animation, and that's when we want to reset these styles. So let's give this a shot. That seems to work. And then when we're done, we unset it. So that's the basic idea, but we obviously have some more work to do to get these actually animating. And the way we're going to do this is with CSS transitions. So first we can say the transition property should be transform because we want this scale transform to animate. And we'll also set the duration to our transitions.duration value in seconds. And this is just what we're already using here. This just comes from a constant up here at the top of the file. And then similarly, we want to set the transition timing function so that we can use our easing values. And these come from right here. This is an array, which we want to use with cubic Bezier, which takes in 4 numbers, basically like this. So let's just save that so it auto formats. And then to make this dynamic, I'll turn this into a template string. Right here, we can replace this with our transitions.ease. And this is an array. We'll go ahead and join this with a comma. And let's see what we got. Okay, so this is starting to look pretty good on opening here. So when we open this, we see all the timing and the easings look like they match up just great. Now, before we continue, this is getting a little bit messy, and we need to reset these down here when we close the modal, kind of back to whatever they started as. So let's make a little helper function that's going to make our life a little easier. I think it'd be nice if we had a set function that took in an element and then a set of styles. So like this for the HTML element, and then like this for our next root. And then now we can just pass in a bunch of styles like transform, scale 93, transition property of transform, duration of our expression right here, and then the timing function of our expression right here. So let's comment out this old code, and I'm just going to pop open another window and come to the bottom, function set, and we can implement this function. So this is going to take an element, and it's going to take an object of styles. And to start, we basically just want to iterate through each set of styles and then call this method to actually set it. So we can say object.entries for each one of these styles. This is going to give us an array that we can for each over. And the array has both the key and the value for each pair in the object. And so now we can just grab the element, call.style, and then for each key, we want to set it to the value. So let's come over, refresh, hit edit, and we see everything is still working. But now for actually resetting this, when we finish the animation, again, instead of doing this, it'd be nice if we could just say, let's go ahead and reset the HTML document as well as our app root right here. So let's come out and implement reset. And reset takes in an element. So we'll pass in element. And to actually reset it to the original style so we don't kind of mess with it too much, we're going to need a cache. So let's create a new cache. And right before we set it, we want to remember the current value in the cache. Now we're passing in the element, which acts as a natural cache key. So we can use a map here, which is a JavaScript structure that lets us use actual objects as keys. So we can create an original styles empty object in this function. Right before we set this, let's grab original styles. And for this key, let's say for the transform property right here, because again, we're iterating over all these keys. We'll go ahead and set the original value of transform into the cache. We can get that with element.style for this key. So this is the original value, which we're putting in this object right here. Then we update it to the new value from the styles argument. And then right before we leave, let's just go ahead and say cache.set. This is how you update a map. And in the cache, we'll use the element for the key, and then we'll just drop in the original styles here for the value. So this means every time we call set, we'll be able to update the element, but we'll remember the original styles right here and then put it in this cache. So let's just come over and refresh and make sure our set function still works. Okay, and then now when we call reset, we basically want to get the original styles from our cache. So we'll say cache.getL. And then we want to update them like this. So object.entries original styles for each key and value. Let's go ahead and set the style to that new value. So now if we refresh, and we hit edit, then we see after we close, the styles are reset. So this is just a little bit of helper code that we can use so that our code up here is a little bit more readable. Now, to get the animation to work when we close, we actually need to reset transform here right when the close animation starts. So right when I click this, we should add a reset to transform so that it shrinks back to the full size. And then after it's complete, we can reset all the other properties. So we need to know when the close animation starts. And so right here is the open. We can just say else. This is going to be when the close animation starts. And this is when we actually want to go ahead and reset our root styles here. But we don't want to reset everything. We want to leave the duration, the property, and the timing. We just want to set this one property. So it'd be nice if we could do that in our little reset helper here, maybe something like this, where we just pass in a single property we want to reset. So let's go implement this prop. And then we'll just say, if we want to reset a single prop, let's just get l.style for that prop and reset it back to original styles prop. Otherwise, we'll iterate over everything and reset it all. So now if we hit edit and close, look at that. Pretty simple. But then once the thing is closed, we don't see any kind of contamination. Nothing is left over from our modal, like the background black or anything like that. So this is starting to look pretty good. Now next, let's get these borders rounded. So we also want to set the border radius to 8 pixels. And that's not quite enough. I think we're going to need an overflow hidden on this right here. So if we come to the Styles tab, we got the border radius, overflow hidden, and that looks like that does the trick. So let's add overflow hidden. And there we go. That's starting to look really good. Now let's come to our modal window and let's bring it back to MT4. And we'll see that it has a little bit of space here, but it covers a little bit too much. So if we bring this back down, we can look and see how we might fix this. Right now I have the next app selected where we are scaling this by 0.93. We can also add a translate of Y here. And this way we can basically kind of move our app up and down just like that. So something like that should be good if we bring this back up. Actually, we'll see we want it more like -23 pixels. But if we come here and change the size of this, you'll actually notice that this value kind of changes as we make this taller or shorter. And that's because right now our transform origin isn't set. So if we set this to the top, then any value of this transform property will be kind of relative to the top middle of the device. And we'll see that now it's independent of the height. So we should use that property and then we should find a value here, which looks like it's going to be about 8 pixels that works. So let's come back to our code. We'll go ahead and set transform origin to top. And then in transform, we should be able to say translate Y is 8 pixels. So now if we refresh, hit edit, that's starting to look really nice. Okay, things are looking okay in Chrome. Let's go ahead and bring this out so we can see how it looks using the iOS simulator, which is really where I care about this effect because this is how I use this app as a standalone home screen app on my phone. So this is already running my dev server right here. And if I click edit, we'll see that some of our changes are definitely here, but our Y translation is kind of messed up. And that's because of the safe area right here. We're not accounting for kind of the notch in the code that we already wrote. So I think if we just add the value of the notch to this value, we should be good. So let's wrap this in calc. And then we can use the environment variable here to get the safe area and set top, which is going to be 0 in Chrome, but here it's going to be 40 something pixels. And now if we hit edit, look at that. This comes down just enough so that we can see it right over the modal. Now let's go ahead and push this back down. And we'll notice that our borders are not rounded. And something that helped me when I was building this was using the debugger here on the simulator. If you have Safari open and you click develop, you can go ahead and pull open the Safari dev tools here for our simulator, which is pretty cool. And now we can basically come here to our app. We see it has all these properties set, but we're not seeing that rounded corner. That's because our header is actually using a fixed position. So if we were to remove fixed, look at that, you'll see the rounding here. But we use a fixed position because if we were to go ahead and reset this and then take the fixed header off, it actually becomes scrollable in standalone mode. So we don't want that. We want it to be fixed, but while it's in the back there, if we go ahead and hit edit, and then I override this to be position absolute, that kind of works with the existing layout, but it also lets these borders be rounded. So let's come back to the code here. And what we want to do is go ahead and get query selector header and set position to absolute. And then when we close this, we want to go ahead and make sure to reset that header so that it still works. Let's refresh this. Another little tip, Command Option K lets us use the keyboard, so we can Command R to refresh and then hit escape to stop capturing keyboard events. And now if we hit edit, that looks good. And if I close this, we're back to the fixed header and we don't get that scrolling behavior. So that's pretty cool. Now we have one more little piece that we can tweak. You'll see that the modal body is scrollable here. This is nice with the fixed header treatment. But if we're at the top, we actually can grab this and the background scrolls. So we need to fix that. And the way we're going to do that is to actually make the body position fixed. We'll see that that kind of shrinks it. So we're going to want to go ahead and set inset to 0. So this fixes the scrolling issue. But you'll see there's something weird going down here at the bottom. And it turns out when we set position fixed, the iPhone kind of reclaims this bottom notch section here for some reason. The way to fix this, which took me a while to figure out, so hopefully some of you benefit from this, is to come to HTML and set the height to 100 VH. So if HTML has 100 VH height, we can go ahead and add a fixed class to the body. Now we can't scroll it, but if we come to the contents here, we can still scroll this. And that was kind of a key little point that I needed to make this all feel like it was going to be usable and work well. So let's go ahead and make those changes. We'll come back to our code. When we start this, we'll grab the document.body, set the position to fixed, and inset to 0. And then on our HTML, we also want to set the height to 100 VH. So let's dismiss the modal, save this, and let's give it a shot. Okay, that seems to be good. We can scroll this, but we can't scroll this. And if we dismiss this, everything looks good. So let's put our modal back to MT4. Come over here. And this is starting to look really nice. So yeah, that was basically what I wanted to show you. You know, this is not like a totally reusable modal right now because we're reliant on some specifics in my app, like the fact that the header is fixed and all these things. This was how I had to do it to get the overall layout working in normal mode, where I can just make sure that the body is scrollable and the rest of the header and the footer aren't. But I'm going to throw all this code into a gist and link it in the video, so feel free to play around with it. I thought it was really cool that, you know, these hooks are available for us. We didn't have to mess with use effect or anything like that to coordinate changing the styles on those outer classes. And now I just have this pretty slick modal I can use anywhere. I mean, I could even make it kind of only come up halfway. If I wanted a little action sheet, I could add more interactions where maybe you can drag this down. There's all sorts of fun stuff to do, but I thought that little bit of polish there really adds a lot to this when you're using this on the phone and you kind of have those expectations for how these different UI elements work when you're interacting with them on an app like website, which is what this is. So yeah, it kind of took a while to figure out all these little pieces, but hopefully you picked up a thing or two along the way. If you use the modal in your app and you like it, let me know what you think, or if you have any improvements that you make to it, I'd love to hear them. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.